Hey everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Criterion Watch. I'm your host, Jonathan Moody. I'm here with
Presenza, otherwise known as the Moo Cow Moo.
And our special guest,
Joe Turek. No mooing over here.
No mooing over there. No, not at all. And this film is nothing to be mooed over. You know, this film is something, as I was explaining to Joe earlier, this is something that would be familiar to him and to Paul, because they both reviewed a similar film, and so I decided to do this one.
We have no idea where this is going yet.
I think Paul might. I think I had told him before, but maybe he forgot. I don't know. Did you forget?
I forget everything.
Okay. So, you forgot.
Who are you people again?
What?
I said, who are you people?
Where am I? Who am I?
What's going on here? So yes, we're going to be talking about the Sidney Lumet movie, Failsafe.
Oh, okay.
And
Nice.
that is very much like a little bit of a movie called Doctor Strangelove, which we reviewed, which you guys reviewed.
If it wasn't a comedy.
If it wasn't a comedy. So this is the more serious version of it. So
Yeah, I haven't seen this I saw it years and years and years ago.
yeah. So and you haven't seen it?
I think I have. I just got. I think I have.
All right. Well, we'll find out if you.
I'm going into it with fresh eyes, though. So if I have it, I don't remember it right off the top of my head. It'll sort of happen.
And I'm going in with fresh elbows.
Yes, I'm going with fresh noses. I know, but anyway, we'll be back very soon. So stay tuned. Bye. We're back.
And this happy comedy filled us with so much joy and happiness, laughter.
It was so funny. Oh my goodness. Oh man.
A lot different than Strangelove. I mean,
Laughed until I cried.
Not that there's not some similarity in end feelings, but
there's a lot of
Pee or
similarities.
pants and laughter.
But at least in the end feelings when you see Strangelove is that you have some internal
Well,
I don't say
it's
laughing, but
it's funny, but it's absurd humor.
Yeah.
It's you know, it's absurd that we have gotten ourselves, that humans are so stupid that we've allowed ourselves to get put in this situation, and it's ridiculous and it's absurd, and you have to laugh at it because otherwise you'll cry. This movie, you're all about crying. There is nothing funny about it. You know, this is the reality. This is the very good possibility that it could happen. It's much more of a likely situation than us being attacked by someone, because that's just mutual, assured destruction. But if an accident happens, something out of our control, and nobody can figure out what to do about it or how to stop it, that's a very different situation. So,
And both movies had that thing, the idea of what if we let technology control us or whatever and dictate what we're supposed to do next. What if there was a mistake, because technology can make mistakes.
And the irony is he built in all these fail safes into our plans, and yet it's the very fail safes that we've built in that actually assure the destruction.
Right, the fail safe was CA whatever.
Yeah, it's
811.
It's fail assure
Cap
instead of fail
Cap
safe.
811.
Yeah, it ensures the failure instead of preventing it.
Yeah, and he's like, "Wait, Moscow, really?" He even asked that. It was kind of like, "Oh shit!" It was not funny when you watch it at all. It was like,
especially
holy crap.
The last third, the tension really ramps up.
Oh god, the woman, the wife yelling, stop. I remember that.
Right. Because I remember when I originally saw this, I'm like, at least in Hollywood, most Hollywood movies, that's the part where they would have stopped it and it would have been a happy ending. Oh no, not this time.
No, he can't. He's not even gonna believe his own wife.
Nope.
Well, he thinks that his wife is being manipulated by the thing or something.
And then they throw the last little extra twist in the back with the knife where you see the president's wife is there in New York City.
Yeah, well, and we have to explain that the New York City thing is that the fact that Russia, Russia has to talk to the President of the United States, and the President of the United States, played by Henry Fonda, chooses to say, if one of our megaton missiles blows up your Moscow, one of our other megaton missiles will destroy New York.
Right.
And
So please don't launch your missiles to destroy the rest of the country.
Yeah.
We'll sacrifice our big city to make up for us accidentally destroying your big city.
I think it's fair, but like it's really fucked up.
Well, they had the argument at the beginning when with Matthau's character about would you sacrifice 6 to save 4, and 6 and 10s, and there was commonality with the 6s and the planes because there were 6 planes, 4 that they sacrificed at the beginning, and then you're sacrificing how many millions of people for New York to save the rest of the world versus Russia with Moscow.
So the one thing I was really fucking pissed off about was the fact that this was all like at the end. The president said it was nobody's fault. It was fucking Russia's fault.
No, it wasn't. I disagree.
I agree. I disagree
Yeah,
because I think it was them jamming the signal to start with that screwed everything up.
Yeah, but we would have done the
But
same
the U.S.
thing.
is doing the same things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they didn't do it in that
The problem was putting ourselves in that position in the first place,
right?
Which is why the SALT treaties are so critical, so that we can dial back. You know, the one part that Walter Matthau's character was pissed off about is like, are you suggest disarming? Yes, that's what sane fucking people do,
yes.
And that's what we have been doing until fucking Putin ruined everything and they're ramping shit back up again. But disarming, getting away from nuclear weapons because everybody loses in a nuclear, even in a limited one. Everybody loses.
This particular case in this film, the Russians did the first thing, but it could have just as easily been the other way around.
Technically, it would have still been a problem because the failsafe still happened. All that stuff still happened because of some UFO. Did they ever figure out what the UFO was?
I don't think so.
Yeah, so
I think that was their way of saying we don't control everything that's going on with our electronic systems. Even if it's the best in the world, we still don't know exactly what this thing is. So we are depending on it and trusting it, and yet there's a blip in the system, and that's exactly what happens.
And we're watching this through a lens of 2023 versus 1963 or 64, to where, I mean, we have cell phones and
that situation was very real back then.
There, it's like, I mean, they had these boards and all that stuff, and it was like big technical state of the art stuff. And for us, it looked like one of the references was like an Atari screen or something like that.
Well, what I remember hearing about Dr. Strangelove was the board, the big board and everything was not real.
Right.
Like that was not like that was all kind of made up because they didn't know.
The ironic thing is that it became real. The military actually created one or something similar to that after the Kubrick thing.
Yeah, because they were like, that's a
great idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do that. But this had somewhat of a idea of a big board.
And you'll notice the other good thing about the Kubrick movie is the interiors of the bomber jets are a lot more detailed than this one. The fact is, nobody really knew exactly what it looked like, but I think Kubrick had one technical person or advisor who had been in the Air Force and was able to give him more of an idea. Even though it wasn't exactly what the current bombers had, he said, well, the alignments are this way and the certain instruments are this way. So they were able to produce a lot more detail. You didn't really get the detail in this. It was always kind of that one angle, which, it's okay, but it still worked. But there were a number of differences between the films.
A lot of the one angle things made you feel a little bit more claustrophobic. And I think that was the thing he was going for.
In Kubrick's movie, you felt like the plane was huge. You felt like there was people moving. You could move around.
Yeah. Because it felt more like a set in a way than this feels more like
people
real.
Were climbing in and out. Slim Pickens has to go through the floor to get into the bomb bay to get on top of the bomb. You get the feeling that this is a giant fucking plane, which is what it is.
Right.
There's a probably big production budget's probably difference between the two.
You had said earlier that it was an independent production.
Yeah, I was reading it was an independent production, and that's where all the lawsuits and everything came into play. But it was
it's the same movie.
Yeah, well, they say it's based off of similar material.
Well,
but
they're both two different books that were written at the same time and came out at the same time, and they both had the same basic
And
idea.
it just goes to show you where America's head was, and everybody's head was in 1963-64, where the
like this
fear
yeah.
of nuclear war.
There's different interpretations that people could have for in the case of these films.
This is all right after the Cuban Missile Crisis.
But the differences they even had in this film itself, it's like how you brought Mathau's character, who was the professor, bringing the whole educational background, thinking it was that, and then it's like argument. He said back and forth and stuff like that. So I mean that goes with the whole.
He's the bean counter. He's the guy who's looking at it from a numbers perspective only.
I got him so fucked. I got so pissed off. You saw me get pissed off because I was like, "What is this guy doing in here? This is a military thing."
That's there are people who are like that, who are going to advise like that. They're just going to look at the numbers and say this is what it means, and you're going to have other people say those numbers are human beings. You know, you can't sacrifice human beings. I don't care what your numbers say.
Remember what that one guy, Raskob or whatever, he was there just checking it all out and seeing everything. He was there basically to be the audience, to figure out what all of this stuff was and everything.
Like, I'm not leaving.
Yeah, and then he's like, I'm not leaving.
He's like, well, what do I have? I can't get to my family in time.
I can't get my family in time if we get bombed, so I might as well stay here and be with you guys, and they couldn't kick him out. I guess they could probably.
And it's an interesting sacrifice because his friends in New York City, his wife's in New York City. He could have chose to bomb Chicago.
Oh, you're talking about the president.
Chicago's a big fucking city too. L.A. big fucking city.
Yeah, and the president did know his wife was in New York.
So I think he feels like he almost had to make that extra sacrifice.
Did he? I can't remember. Did he suggest New York or did?
I think he did.
Did the Russians suggest New York?
He did.
Okay, because that's a big difference. Then, because if the Russians suggested it, then he had to play along with them. But if he put it up, then
he made the whole spiel.
Yeah, because I remember him suggesting it, but I didn't know.
I can't imagine any politician from any stripe doing that today. Ain't gonna happen.
No.
Not gonna happen.
Not gonna sacrifice anybody like that they actually love or care about, and they're not going to. And they would just say, let's just go to war then at this point.
Most likely.
And stuff, even if it was an accident, we're still going to go to war. Which is what the one guy was talking about, is the politics. Like, it hasn't gone to, like, military stuff. It's all politics
and
now.
the problem is you have two bad choices. We can either go with the attack, destroy Russia before they have a chance to launch everything, and we all die eventually within a year anyway because everything's polluted, or we go to the other system and they launch and we kill each other immediately now. It's just as bad.
So I wanted to mention, so when I said it was the Russians' fault, I did think about it after a bit, and I said it wouldn't have mattered because the fail-safe stuff would have still happened had they not. And they weren't trusting anything that the other people were saying.
They didn't
anyway.
even trust each other.
They weren't allowed.
The premier didn't even know that the technology was doing that.
Right, and that's true.
Their military
even
didn't
the
even
Russians didn't know.
Yeah, and that happens in our country. The military doesn't tell our politicians everything, which is probably for the best.
Sometimes they don't want the politicians to know because then they would order something else.
Precisely.
And it makes total sense.
And for the most part, a lot. There are a few exceptions, but for the most part, most of the politicians and the military people, whether we're Americans or Russians, there's a lot of similarities. It's just sometimes you have a few crazies at the very top that might change the dynamics of stuff.
It needs. I mean, nuclear weapons need to go. It needs to be the exact same as chemical weapons or biological weapons. There are no winners, not even in a limited way. You have to get rid of all of them. That is the lesson, and unfortunately, that's not the lesson that our governments around the world have learned. And mainly because there are other actors out there who don't think rationally and would love to get their hands on nuclear weapons because they don't care if the world is polluted or destroyed afterwards. They're looking to die or kill as many people as they can anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there was that big debate with the with I think the colonel and the general, at one point, and they were getting to like the argument or whatever. And he punches him so that he can take control of the whole thing.
That was amazing.
And that was a great scene.
Yeah.
And then they were like, "We got to come with us, sir. Or we can actually kill you." And he's like, "No, you're gonna kill everybody. What are you doing? You guys are idiots. don't do this. And
that's everybody's individual perspectives, selfish, or they just have no room for interpretations. Because it's like we're having this discussion, and it's like do we just come straight out? I mean, in our current climate, Russia, we're adversaries in a lot of ways, but it's like
in a lot of ways,
yeah,
we're definitely adversaries.
But it's like what happened then. It's like it had to be handled so delicately in such a fragile situation.
I will say this: there is one hole that I poke at, and that is when they get the wife to get on there, and she's trying to plead with him, the pilot to turn back, and she doesn't do the thing that you were saying. Say something that only the two of you would know, that nobody else could possibly know. She doesn't do that.
right.
She wasn't even advised to do that.
I think she should have, but do you think it would have worked? Because I think I agree that it should have happened. But if they wouldn't, even if they would have done it, I think part of the messaging of this movie was that there is so many things that are drilled in at such a level, all these fail-safe, everything, that the guy's military training was so ingrained into him that he would still, ultimately, when it all come down to it, he still feel like he was being tricked.
Sure, all the things that we have done to try to protect us are the things that are going to ultimately kill us.
And I think that would have ultimately, but I agree that something like that should have been tried, but I mean, I don't think it would have worked.
Tried and failed is all I would say.
There's two things with that. The one thing would have been, it would have given us that happy ending that you ate.
Well, no, I'm not saying for it to work. I just wanted to see it tried.
Yeah, okay.
I wanted to see him hesitate. I wanted to think about it because I think that would have happened.
He did hesitate for a second. I could notice, like, when he was hearing her for the first time, he got a little, for a second, he got a little worried. You could tell on the way that he was, and then he went right back to mode. Now, I mean, it should have maybe been a little longer on him and everything, but maybe there was a cut that had him do that, but, like, I don't know.
Are there extras on the disc?
That is... Thank you for asking, because that is the time where I should probably bring up the special features on this awesome Criterion.
They usually do a lot of good stuff on there. So.
I know. We've been doing that a lot lately. I think we did that when you were on Time Bandits and stuff, and just saying all the cool things you get. So it comes with a new 4K digital restoration. It's not a 4K movie, though. It's just a Blu-ray. With uncompressed monorail soundtrack. Audio commentary from 2000 featuring director Sidney Lumet. New interview with film critic Jay Hoberman on 1960s nuclear paranoia and the Cold War films. That should be interesting. Failsafe Revisited, a short documentary from 2000 featuring interviews with Lumet, screenwriter Walter Bernstein, and actor Dan O'Hurley. I think there was also, what was his name? Because they actually remade this.
There was like a TV movie or something.
Yeah, there was a TV movie.
And it wasn't good.
Yeah, and Clooney is, I think, on this talking about that. And then there's like an essay. So there's
I really liked the opening where you've got this symbolic dream that O'Hurley's character's having, and how it bookends the end where he's haunted by it, and it turns out not just to be a dream, but it is a premonition. And it catches up with, but he still goes through with it because it's like fate. It's like he's been fated to play this role.
What would have happened had he not gone through with it? Then
the Russians would have launched all their shit
at us.
Yeah, a nuclear war,
and then all of America would have been blown up.
Yeah,
and then all of Russia, it'll been possibly the end of the world.
So it was a good thing in this storyline that the president made that one sacrifice because of this, the sacrifice Moscow or Russia was going to have to make and everything. So I'm interested to know about because a movie like this comes out. I wonder what the Russian people are thinking when they're watching this. Are they is America thinking of this stuff? Are they gonna, you know what I mean? I'm watching a movie that's not necessary. That's just, it's entertainment, but it's also something that could happen. It's scary.
This movie's more than
I
entertainment.
I like the way that they present the Russians, that the Russians are not much different from us. They think the same way. They feel the same way. Even though Walter Matthau is saying, they're a bunch of calculating machine. No,
communists,
no.
And all this other shit.
Nonsense.
And then, but even, we were talking about it earlier, that even at the point where the president is with his translator, Buck, who's like
Buck Turgison.
Buck Turgison, but it's not, which is weird. I swear they must have read this.
I'm sure that was part of
You're
the
gonna-
I'm
you'll
sure that
see
was
the
part
big
of
board,
that
and
was
he's, like,
that was
trying to
probably part of
hide
the lawsuit.
everything.
It's like, you have your buck, we have our buck. Wait, what's going on?
What is going on? It's a little bit too similar
Yeah.
here. But so he comes up there and he says, the bastard's talking to these people, and they seem very angry at him. They're telling him, don't answer that, you know, right? And then they're also saying, like, later he was like, yeah, well, your
the same thing
people-
happened.
Yeah, the same thing happened with your guys, with our guys.
Yeah.
We are.
The thing is, both sides were both adversaries. You know, both first world powers, nuclear powers. But we still think logically, and none of us want this to happen. Like I said, the problem, and the thing that wasn't thought of in the 50s and 60s, early 60s, when all this was happening, is the modern problem, which is you have these other groups of people, these people who are not part of the nuclear powers, but who can still get their hands on that kind of material, and who are motivated by things other than logic, whether it's, I don't know, religion or whatever. The kind of people who will crash planes into buildings and not care. Those are the kinds of people that will not hesitate to use these kinds of weapons, which is why they need to be gotten rid of so that they can't get their freaking hands on it. You know?
Thank you for your political.
Well, and that's why I would
standing.
love to see this kind of a film and Strangelove updated to modern times to reflect that.
Well,
that would be tough. That would be a very tough situation.
They do deal with some of the moral questions that you're talking about with this in the new film Oppenheimer.
Yes, you haven't seen that yet.
And they really address the thing of it's a question of, should we build the bombs, but can we, but should we?
See, Nolan's the new Kubrick.
He's really good.
And that dilemma is really good. I mean, Oppenheimer was just an excellent film.
Right.
all around.
And that's always the question.
There's
We
elements of
can do
in
this,
that.
but should we do this?
And I think that's a nice bookend for me in this past year, is seeing these. Well, it's been about a year and a half since Kubrick, the Strangelove, but seeing this one and Oppenheimer in between, it's like
I need to see Oppenheimer.
It gives a very multifaceted view.
Is it still out?
I think it's just
think
left the years. I think it's on
It's got to be on. Well, no, I don't think it's on digital, like anything yet.
It's coming soon. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Joe and I watched
Joe
Lynn watched the Killers of the Flower Moon last night.
Cool. Oh, you went to the theater?
Went to the theater.
I
Sat
think-
through
I
a
think-
3.5
It was
hour
really good,
movie?
though.
Yeah, I think Oppenheimer
really
came back
good.
out in the IMAX screen for maybe another week or two. In the
IMAX?
past couple weeks,
Oh, I'd love
it
to see
did.
it.
It might be gone by now, but it should be coming on. I think it's going to be Max or one of those. But I mean, it'll be
I want
available.
to see it in the theater before
It's going to
goes.
be available on Blue and 4K and stuff like that. Because
Interesting.
it's a beautiful film. But it deals with some of those moral questions. I mean, that movie is more based on that Oppenheimer, the guy.
That is a real Pandora's box that he opens up here with the ability to create such a destructive force. You know, and the idea that you have to question. You know, again, this is something we can do, but is this something we should do? You know, when it comes to like chemical and nuclear weapons or chemical and biological weapons. We've all pretty much decided no. I mean, even the Nazis didn't do that.
They've been talking about this since Ed Wood played 9.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
even
Silvernight.
but the idea in that movie was, you know, you guys, you know, the moral of that story was the alien telling them that, you know, you guys keep creating these bigger bombs that keep blowing up bigger, you know, more things, and what you're thinking about is, you know, maybe you shouldn't be doing these things because it's just destroying.
Transgressing against nature.
They do it in some, in even more fun films like Jurassic Park, where I love Goldblum's line in there. He's like, you always thought of it that you could, but should.
It's what I like to call the Icarus factor when it comes to humans and science. You know, you fly because you want to fly high, but you fly too high, fly close to the sun, you melt your wings, and you end up crashing.
Yep.
You know, that's human society right there.
And this movie is a warning of that.
And you were saying before, Paul, that apparently, like nowadays, what would be the accident or something would be somebody hacking into our stuff, because you know our stuff's online somewhere. So if somebody wanted to figure out how do that, and then they could like, change the courses of missiles and have it attack us or something. Or
most
that's
of
war
our
games.
yeah,
most of our missiles are not on the internet. They are completely off.
okay, that's good.
Yeah, no, they did that for a reason. But satellites can be hacked.
We don't want a war game scenario. Right?
Yeah, no. But satellites can be hacked, and there are other things that can happen. So it's not good. But the biggest problem is the fact that somebody can get a hold through the black market with nuclear fissile materials, and that's not good. So, yeah, that's why it's critical that the giant fucking nuclear power plant in Ukraine needs to be protected at all costs, because somebody gets their hands on that shit. I mean, just imagine some crazy group somewhere. All you need is one briefcase bomb. And it doesn't even have to be expertly done. A dirty bomb will be just as bad.
So what I was mentioning to you before, I want to touch on this real quick, is that the scene with the president and his translator would have had way more people in there.
Yeah.
And they would have had advisors, and they would have had somebody telling the president,
Joint
don't
Chiefs
do
would have
that.
been there.
Don't do that, President Biden. Don't go.
Well, the idea is that when there's that kind of an emergency, you have to separate the president into some kind of safe place away from everybody else, and then you tell the vice president he goes somewhere else. But the thing is that they don't go alone. They're going to be with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And there's good and bad to that, because I think the good is it's like you get too many opinions and it spoils it. But at the same time, if you have the wrong person in control in the presidency, then you have a problem with that too.
But
so.
the thing is that the president has to make that decision, but he's not going to make it all by himself.
Yeah,
Who was the
proper
president
balance.
in 1964?
Kennedy.
Kennedy?
Or before he got assassinated.
Yeah.
So this would have all been like on Kennedy's.
Yeah, well, there's the movie came out probably about 20 years ago. Was it Next 3 Days, I think? Or not Next 3 Days, 13 Days?
13 Days.
Has Costner in it, and it deals with the Cuban Missile Crisis and in that time.
The closest we actually came to an actual nuclear war.
Yes.
Yeah.
But,
Wow, was that after this though?
It was right before this.
So this is based on the idea of the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Possibly, I think the paranoia was certainly ratcheted up as high as it had ever been at that point.
I remember watching that movie Matinee recently and stuff, and that movie, like Joe Dante movie with about
John Goodman.
John Goodman movie, and they had the people like drop it down, thinking that there's going to be bombs and everything.
I mean, I may be wrong because I don't remember everything anymore, but I'm pretty sure the Cuban Missile Crisis was 1962.
Okay. So this is 1964, so it would have been just right after that.
If it was based off books, it was probably between this and Strangelove being based off of a different book. It was probably all that, like I said, the paranoia, like you were saying, the paranoia and some of the events of the world that was going on. It inspired that.
I mean, I don't like. There's a paranoia right now.
Sure.
Like we don't know. We live in Virginia, everybody. So I hear planes flying overhead, jet planes and stuff, and I have no idea like what's happening at any time. And I'm like, I had actually dreamed a couple maybe a week ago or so that that there was bombs happening, like going off like on one side and then other bombs getting dropped on the other side. I'm like in the middle and everything. I was all freaked out. I was like, what the hell?
What's kind of interesting with that is it's like, and maybe it's I got so watered down. I was a military kid. So it's like I hear planes flying over me. And I live kind of close to an Air Force base right now. I kind of just it's kind of dismissed almost.
But you feel more safe.
Or it's just been sugared over that I'm just so used to being there. It's like, but it could legitimately be something.
Yeah.
The only other thing I did kind of poke at is that, again, when it becomes clear that there's one single thing that they were following, they should have told them that was a mistake, that was a problem. Because if the Soviets were going to, even back then, launch a surprise attack, it would have been en masse. Because there's no reason to send one over. Because that's just going to, make the United States send everything.
I don't understand why
it has to have been a mistake.
I don't understand why they couldn't have shot it down, though. And I mean,
they were trying.
There's also elements of flying from Alaska to Moscow. There's fuel elements and various things. It's like, how is that possible that they could have gotten that far to Moscow? Because Moscow's more on the eastern side of Russia. I believe. So it seems like
Oh, it's on the west. It's more on the western side. It's closer to Europe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm thinking it's on closer to Europe.
Yeah,
I mean.
you're right.
Why
They got a
couldn't they
long way to go.
But why couldn't
Unless-
they
unless
have
they
shot
went up
down
over-
the plane?
Yeah, I think they go through the poles. I think that's how
Yeah.
they do it.
Oh. Anyway, it was a crazy movie.
Yeah, and another thing, outside of the opening and the ending, I don't remember there being much music in it at all. And I think that was great that they didn't because it was so stripped down.
We talked about that earlier. Like in the beginning of the movie, there's like usually music and stuff, and I think that would have just taken away from some of the effectiveness of the movie and making it feel more real.
Now, what I was saying earlier is that what should be happening in modern planes, and I say should be because nobody really knows, this is one of those secrets, is the idea of a kill switch.
Right.
So that something like this doesn't happen. So that if one of our planes goes rogue and we have no way of recalling it, we can't shoot it down, we have a secret thing that we push a button and the plane loses power and it drops out of sight.
But there's that fear of, can that be hijacked?
If you keep it a secret, nobody knows about it.
Maybe
That's the thing.
there is something we don't. Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah, and then that's probably a good thing.
Right. And that's one of those questions you don't want to ask.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to know.
Yeah.
You hope for the best.
Yeah. So, throughout the film, one of the things that I really liked is when they were getting ready to show stuff with we call it the big board, of what was going on. I like the shots that they did it. He did it a number of times where he did it from behind the person, and then it was like upward, so they were looking up behind the person, up at the board, and it allowed us time to digest the dramatic stuff going on between the characters at that moment, so we were able to digest it, but also see from that angle what we were facing.
And remember, so there was one part where they see the thing like attack and hit the people and it explodes. Everybody goes, yeah! And I even went like, yeah.
Yeah, because you jumped a lot.
They're like,
I got excited.
This isn't
I
a
was
football
like,
game.
And then they said that, so I felt like I got scolded for that, because I got excited. I don't know why. It just got me like, I was like, oh man, it's like watching a video game.
Yeah.
It's like,
But the thing is it's like there really is no winners in this, really. And it's like it's just
Nope.
no,
And
this
that's
is
the
just a
point that it
sad
drives
story. I mean,
And that's why this movie did not do well. I mean, I think it was critically lauded as a good film, but audiences, they didn't want to see this. Not then.
In the 1960s, man, there was swinging
They-
60s.
they
They were trying to
wanted-
have fun. And
Yeah, they wanted
They
to
did
forget
not-
about this.
I know.
Like,
But see, that's the problem with doing any kind of war movie at any time in life.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to see war necessarily.
Right.
Now, movies like maybe one day we'll do like Come and See, which is really
oh, that's a great one.
it's a hard movie from what I've understood. I haven't seen it
Yeah,
yet, but
it's rough.
I have it, and if we do it, it's
Criterion Watch. We'll do it for that.
yeah, we'll do it for that at some point. And it's a hard movie, but like who wants to go see it? You're right. Who's like, oh, I'm excited. Now, Oppenheimer is not necessarily a war movie, but it's about like making the bomb.
It's about making the bomb.
Yeah.
It's a biopic on Oppenheimer, the guy.
Yeah, the guy who made
but
the bomb.
the background is obviously him getting that knowledge and through his life, getting to that point
It's
of
a
building the
little
bomb
bit different
and the
than-
effects of it. So yeah, it's a bit different than this because this is not about a specific person. It's about an event, and it's about moral lines of the world.
Yeah,
And there were a number of movies that came out in this period that are very Cold War tinged, that are superior. I mean, the original Manchurian Candidate, for example, which I want to do for either Film Freaks or Criterion Watch, we definitely have
Is
to.
it on
If you
Criterion?
haven't seen it yet, you guys need to see that because it's a fantastic film.
The original.
The
original, Frank
far
Sinatra
superior than the other one.
Yeah, the one with Sinatra,
Not Denzel Washington.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong.
You know, Denzel is a fantastic actor, but I just don't think that's the same movie.
Yeah.
Well, I think this was great. I think this is a really great discussion on this. This is a hard movie to sort of,
Still packs a punch.
I know.
All these years later.
And I was kind of surprised because, like, watching it did feel very Doctor Strange.
60 years later.
I know, Jesus.
It's another one of these movies too. It's like this sort of parallel with the Strangelove. It is in a very serious tone, but it's like you get movies in the same year or 2 year stretch. Like in more present days, you had the Wyatt Earp and Tombstone, the Armageddon and Deep Impact, or the All About Eve and Sunset Boulevard.
Volcano and
Volcano and
Dante's Peak.
Dante's Peak.
Yeah.
I mean, so this is almost in that.
But they weren't made by the same. I mean, distributed by the same company.
They didn't even. Yeah, well, and I'd like to know more on that, because it's like, I'm sure there's a good story with the litigation and everything that happened there.
Yeah, as soon as you see the one guy in his crutches, you can't help but think Peter Sellers' character in the wheelchair. It's like, wait a second here. His advisors, handicapped as well.
I mean, you could do a whole video on all of it.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's probably I'm sure there's got to be some good reading materials on the comparison.
They just didn't make them German. That's all.
And if Kubrick and company sued them over this, and this came out they made sure it came out after the fact.
Yeah. Which I think it should have came out first, so that people can watch the other one and digest it, because then so many people didn't want to see this movie, from what I read, because they already saw Doctor Strangelove. So.
And I have to throw this out, because you know where my heart is. There was also a lawsuit at the same time with Stanley Kubrick's people with Ray Dennis Steckler, because he made his, creatures that stopped living and became mixed up zombies, which was too similar to the title of Doctor Strangelove, or How I Stopped Worrying About the Blah, 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 blah. And, so he had to change his title of his picture.
But didn't he end up releasing it as that title later? I mean, because that's all I've ever known it.
Well, he did switch the title eventually. It's not the original title.
Okay. There you go.
Because the original is How Do I Worry About Them?
No. I think he's talking about the creatures who...
Incredibly Mixed Up Zombies was also... The original title is more like How I Stopped Worrying About, or something like that. It was too similar to the title.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
I wonder why. I don't know if that was just an accident, or if that was like literally...
Well, apparently, according to Ray Dennis Steckler, he called up and got a hold of Stanley Kubrick directly and said, "What if I changed it to this title?" And he was like, "Yeah, that's fine."
And
that's
not
it.
the same movie, It's not like he's making Doctor. It's not like he's making Failsafe,
Right,
He's just making a movie with a similar sounding title.
And we are going to do that on Indie Film Cafe at some point. It's on my list.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you guys so much for checking this out. If you haven't seen Failsafe, go watch it. It's really good. But we kind of spoiled a lot.
Oh, it's worth seeing, even if it's spoiled.
Yeah.
And I would say don't watch it if you're in a down state of mind.
Yeah, if you're in a depressed mood, do not watch this movie.
If you're looking for something to pump your spirits,
uplift. I would suggest Doctor Strangelove.
Yeah, or just about anything else. But but if you're just looking for good performances, all of them. We didn't even get into.
I'm thinking, what's
so
the one where the little kids are on the island stranded and they end up killing each other?
Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, it's in that vein as far as not being a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, there was Walter Matthau. There's Dom DeLuise.
Dom DeLuise did a really good job.
I keep saying Sorrel Book was in there. Boss Hogg from Duke.
Boss Hogg was in there.
Yeah. And they had some meaty little substance roles. That Dom DeLuise role. I mean,
that was great.
He had was Dan O'Harley.
Dan O'Harley.
Dan O'Harley, he was a great performance
from RoboCop.
Yeah, well, and some other stuff.
A bunch of other stuff.
I'm very disappointed in you, Dick. Who wanted him to say that so badly?
Yeah, so I mean, he was in it.
He was disappointed.
I wanted him to turn around and tell that to one of the generals how disappointed he was with this.
Or he could have gone Colonel Cochran from Halloween 3.
Yeah.
Larry Hagman.
Early role for Larry Hagman.
And then Henry Fonda.
Henry Fonda. Yeah. Just fantastic actors, just fantastic director, Sidney Lumet. Everybody was great. I mean, just the writing by Walter Bernstein, fantastic. Just killer. You guys got to see the movie. Go check it out. I'm sure it's available somewhere for you guys to stream.
And don't forget Prince of the City, also Sidney Lumet.
Yeah,
excellent
we
film.
did that already, and that was great too. So I don't think I've seen a bad Sidney Lumet movie yet.
We haven't done 12 Angry Men yet. We should.
Oh, Henry Fonda early.
Yeah. That was a good one too. But anyway, thank you guys so much for checking this out. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Until then.
Bye. Ha.
Bye.
Okay. Sidney Lumet, baby. He's gonna see the big board.